Welcome back to Northwest City Politics in the Know with Juanita. We're glad that you're joining us for our show again this week. We like people like you, people that are interested in what's happening in the cities in our area. Because it is important for good government that there be a flow of ideas and thoughts and concerns between city councils and mayors, the residents, the staff. It all makes cities stronger. So we're glad that you're interested. If you haven't watched our show before, each week we'll have someone on from one of the 9 cities in CCX's viewing area to tell us about what are the current and up-and-coming issues that are happening in that city. And if it's your city, take down the email and the phone number so if an issue resonates with you, you can be in contact. Now, we're very pleased tonight to welcome John Elder, who's on the New Hope City Council, my council person, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So we're glad to have you back with us again, helping update people on New Hope.
Thank you very much.
And you know that I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself out to our wider audience. Give them a little idea of your time in New Hope and on the council.
You bet. Well, I moved into New Hope in 1988. In 1999, became a police officer for the city. Worked in the city as a police officer till 2007. In 2007, I left the police department and became a city council member.
Right.
I got in on a special seat because one of the council members moved out of state. So I went through an interview process and was selected to be a council member for a short period of time until the next election.
Right.
And I was able to then be elected in 2008, and then again in 2010, and then in 2014. I sit on a number of different boards of directors for the city to represent the city, and it's been a real honor. It's been a lot of fun, and it's been an honor to be able to work with so many different people.
But the city has been considering for quite a while now to build a new City Hall police station. Give us a little idea of kind of the steps that it's gone through.
Oh, there's a lot.
And you can just do it briefly.
Yes. Well, and let me just correct one thing. I said a 4-story for Good Samaritan. It's a 3-story.
Oh, okay.
So that's a little different.
Sure.
Okay. For the past 4 or 5 years, there has been a movement, a thought process about possibly looking at a new city hall and a new police department. I worked in that police department for a number of years. I can tell you there are mold problems. For me, when I was a detective, for me to interview a subject, I had to take them out of the jail secure area, walk them through the administrative secretarial area, and then walk them back to my office and really hope they don't take off out my door. It was built many years ago. There's a number
50 plus years, right?
Yes, and a number of revisions to the building, but it really truly isn't functional. So part of the things that happened was they said, you know, maybe we need to look at, we know the school district would like a new facility. And why don't we look to see if maybe the school district wouldn't be interested in doing a shared facility. And there were a lot of different things. Was it going to be 50-50? Was the city going to own it? Were they going to rent space from us? And if so, how do you lock it into that? And at the end of the day, what it came up to is that it was going to cost too much to do that, to do a joint facility. So we moved forward and we hired a company called Wold Architects to get a better understanding what it would take to get a new building. A City Hall task force was formed of both corporate citizens as well as people that live in the city, regular residential citizens. A 14-person committee was put together and they studied it.
Oh, they spent a lot of time.
Oh, they spent an awful lot of time. They went through the building. They learned a lot about the building. They learned about the dilapidated heating and cooling. Our city council chambers can be 95 degrees, and you walk into the office area of City Hall, and it can be 65 degrees. So we always joke there should be a tornado when those two fronts meet. And they toured other facilities.
Right.
And they went through Richfield Police Department that was just recently built, again, overseen by Wold. And they asked a lot of really good questions. And the really nice thing about it was council wasn't part of it.
Right.
This was an independent group of people who came back to the council with one voice and said, hey, this is what we think. And the questions were, do we need a new city hall?
Right.
Do we need a new police department? And if in fact these things aren't as they should be, do we remodel or do we redo it? Do we tear down and start anew?
Yeah, so they looked in both directions.
There was not an option that was off the table. Everything was on the table, and it was a great group of people that were willing to think outside of the box. Right. And geez, the Park and Rec has wanted a gymnasium for their gymnastics program and their dance program, which are both extremely successful.
Oh, yes.
So they looked at that and they said, that's just too much money. That doesn't make sense. The police department would like a shooting range. And they looked at it and said, you know what? That'd be really neat to have. No, it doesn't make sense financially to do it. So they came back to the city council and made a presentation again in one voice and said, this needs to be redone, and fixing it puts a Band-Aid on it, and Band-Aids don't always hold. So they decided that yes, in fact, there should be a new city hall, and we're getting citizen input, a lot of citizen input. We've had open houses. We just had an open house where 60 people were there that filled out surveys, and so as we move forward with this, new questions arise.
Right.
And go ahead.
I was just going to say, and then you hired, was it Wold or somebody different, because you got financial information and more, not plans drawn up, but ideas for how it could sit on the site.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we have utilized our city engineer through Stantec a great deal to look at these things.
Right.
That's helping keep costs down. We have Wold drawing up preliminary drawings.
Yeah, that's I was thinking that I was right in remembering that.
Yep. Additionally, we have Ellers and AEM, financial consultants, working with us on how we get this paid for.
Right.
And it's going to be borrowing some money.
Oh, definitely.
It absolutely is. However, right now, the city's bond rating is very good, and we have the ability to borrow at low interest.
Oh, right.
And so this seems to be certainly steps in the right direction. We continue to get feedback from citizens. We will continue to get feedback from citizens this entire time. It is so important to us.
Because now the city council is honing in on a specific outline, because you got about 3 choices, and now you're honing in on which one you're going to actually follow.
Exactly. And those different outlines can determine what else in that area gets moved.
Right.
Can we have we believe at this time, because of the really horrible soil samples under City Hall, which is the crux of a lot of our issues, they can close the pool, move the City Hall over to where the pool is, and then fit the pool in over by where City Hall is, and not disturb much of the park, the amphitheater, the skate park, or the playground.
Oh, yeah, because that's been an important part of the whole process.
Absolutely, absolutely. And those are all things that we have to weigh in. The Citizen Commission is looking at all of that and continue to come back to us with feedback and with answers.
So what kind of timeline is there for when the council will actually vote and say, all right, this is the plan we're going to do, and let's get started?
That's the $100,000
Right,
question. But where we're at is we would like to have some decisions made here by August.
Okay.
November, it would come to the council for final approval, and we could start construction after that, assuming we continue with strong public feedback.
Right.
The numbers continue to make sense, and we continue to move forward. And it continues to appear to be the right choice.
And it has been a long process, and you've gathered a lot of information
Oh,
up to this
yeah.
point, kind of funneling down to where you can make a decision on it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And one of the things that we need to keep our eye on as well is we just moved the farmers market
Right.
back to Zion.
Right.
I get to sit on that board of
Right,
directors
right.
as well. And the farmers market is every Saturday, 7 a.m. to noon, right on Zion Avenue there.
Right.
And that's one of the things that we, that also played into the reconstruction
Right.
decisions. The citizens have been so gracious and so supportive of this market. It's been a lot of fun.
Right. And then part of the process that we're not going into a lot of details, but the plan is then to move the swimming pool.
Exactly.
It hasn't been voted on, but it's
Correct.
part of all the plans being brought forward.
Yep, that's part of the
Right.
the movement of everything.
Right. And the pool was what, 50-some years old?
Yes. Oh yeah. The
Right.
pool was well past its original planned
Uh-huh.
life expectancy, and so so
Right.
that's one of the things we will end up moving the pool, and we may end up going from a 50-yard pool to a 25-yard pool, and that's something that causes me some heartburn. The 50-yard pool is really, really unique,
Right.
and it's nice. I look at the cost of it,
Oh, right.
and I realize that maybe unique and nice isn't worth that cost. It's one of the things we're looking at and we're evaluating.
And then people can go on the city website and look at all these different plans and kind of tune into where it's at this point.
Absolutely.
But this is definitely a time for input.
Oh, please.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I always encourage people to email me.
Now, another issue that tends to be a little controversial is unified garbage collection. And maybe you can just talk about what is the current process for garbage collection in New Hope and what is meant by, if you use the term, unified garbage collection. So start out current. What
Yeah.
does New Hope do now?
Right now, there are no restrictions on the number of licensed garbage haulers, companies that the city would allow. So if I find Ronnie's rubbish removal company and I want Ronnie to come into my town and take my garbage away, that's fine. That can happen. We can have 8, 10, 12 trucks running up and down our city streets every week. There is something that I brought up when I first got on council in 2007. I brought up unified garbage collection and said, one of the things that I did as a New Hope police officer is I was a commercial vehicle officer. I would go out and I would weigh trucks and do commercial vehicle violations. And I realized that our city roads take a beating from heavy vehicles. And whereas most of the trucks were never overweight, they certainly stressed and taxed our roads. And so I brought forth in 2007 when I first got on the council, hey, let's look at unified collection. And I was almost drawn and quartered by the citizens.
Well, it's a controversial.
Oh yeah, and
Why should you tell us who our garbage man should be?
oh yeah, and why do you get to set
Yeah.
the price?
Yeah.
And so that was something where I heard back from the citizens loud and clear.
Well,
No,
I think a certain percentage of the citizens like to wheel and deal with the garbage companies and get better deals for
boy.
themselves, right?
I was talking to somebody who said every 2 years when her contract goes out, she contacts the other companies, and she usually ends up with a free 3
Yeah.
months of garbage and grass and collection. Every 2 years she gets that. She said, you won't get that for me.
Yeah, so there is definitely strong differences of opinion.
Oh,
right?
absolutely, absolutely. And what we would not do, and that's what people need to understand, is that we would not just pick one hauler and say,
Okay.
you've got the entire city. What we do is there's analysis of how much each of the individual carriers have of the business. If it's, if Randy's has 17% of the business right now in the city, under a unified plan, they would have 17% of the city still. And they would be restricted to a geographic area. And so we're not telling some carriers, you can't be in the city. We're just telling them, this is what your percentage is, this is where you're at now, and this is, where you need to collect from, if you want to be a part of it. If you don't want to be a part of it, that's fine, you don't have to be. But there are very, very strong opinions. I brought it up again in 2011, and again, the citizens were very, very vocal in that this was not something they were interested in. Now it comes up again, and we have a public hearing set up August 7th at 7 p.m. in the New Hope City Council chambers, and I would love people to come out. Either way, educate either way. You want to do this, you don't want to do this, you're opposed to it, you support it, because I believe the majority of this council doesn't have their mind made up, and they would like the citizens' input.
I think so. Now, an issue that the city has been dealing with over the last month is there was a New Hope police officer who worked part-time for the Metropolitan Council on the LRT
Metro Transit Police Department.
Transit Police Department.
Yeah.
And there was a situation that got wide publicity.
True.
And maybe you can just briefly talk about the situation, and then we'll talk about what's happened so far.
You bet. Officer Andy Lammers was working for the MTC Police Department. One of the things that they do is they ride on the light rail, and they start at one end of the train. Other officers start at the other end, and they work towards each other, and they ask people for their stub, their fare, to show they've paid. Asked everybody coming down the road, or coming down the aisles. Officer Lammers wearing a MTC police officer's uniform, nothing identifying himself as being a New Hope officer. Stops, engages an individual. Do you have your fare? Nope, I didn't. Nope, didn't pay. Okay. What's your name? Gives him a name and date of birth. Something doesn't add up. Officer Lammers, and again, this is information that I'm hearing. We have not seen the video yet, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Officer Lammers said, okay, what's your name? He gives a different name. He says, well, this isn't the name you just had previously given me. All right. At some point, Officer Lammers is trying to ascertain why this person's lying to him, investigating this, and at one point says, are you here illegally? I mean, again, it would lead to an answer as to why someone may lie about their identity. That was on videotape. And that got put onto social media, and it exploded. Took off like wildfire. Yes. And so a number of individuals showed up at one of our council meetings and wanted to discuss this with us. It ended up being really a positive interaction. They came, they were upset about it. They wanted Officer Lammers fired from New Hope, and we listened to them. And one of the things that it aided us in doing is to take the time to evaluate our current policies. And whereas our current policies are good, there needs to be additional looks at other policies that maybe we supplement our policies with to meet best practices. Are there best practices we're not meeting? I don't know the answer to that. But the group that came to us at that council meeting were largely respectful. And the council just listened. And we didn't talk. It wasn't our time to talk. It was our time to listen. And they knew up front no decisions or actions were going to be made that night. And there was never the expectation of it. But it was good dialogue. I'm appreciative that they came. I know we will be seeing them again. And we will work towards making sure that we meet all the best practices that there are.
Right.
And so I look forward to that conversation. Now, one of the things that has been a very significant barrier to New Hope is we made a data practice request for the video from the train and the platform where things didn't go as well as everyone had hoped. And subsequently, we're awaiting that data from the Metro Transit Police, who are not turning it over to us. So it's awfully tough for us to look at things and make decisions when in fact we don't have the information that's available. And so we're looking forward to seeing when Metro Transit Police will provide us with that data and that information so that we can truly evaluate what's transpired.
So it's in process. So
it's absolutely in process, and it's being taken very seriously by the city and by the council.
So if people have any questions, they can check on the website.
Either check on the website.
Watch the agenda and see as it proceeds.
Absolutely. Additionally, you can email.
Okay.
Absolutely. When I got out of that meeting, I had several emails from residents that were watching on either on TV or on cable that had very strong feelings one way or the other. And it was, again, citizen input.
Right.
I am one voice. I am a voice of the people that elected me, and it's my job to move forward and carry forward the wish of the people.
Right.
And sometimes I don't agree with it.
Oh, right.
And I have voted against things that I truly believe the citizens that would be what the citizens' vote would be. And I've been very upfront saying this is really not how I feel. This is how I feel. But
enough people
all of the feedback I have gotten has caused me to vote in this manner.
Right.
So.
Now, an issue that I've been asking a number of people from a bunch of cities about is both Minneapolis and St. Paul have during this past year, maybe a little before that, been moving into regulations on business where whether it be for sick leave or how you package things or for minimum wage, and it's reached a fair amount of media publicity.
You bet. Including the selling of menthol. Products.
A wide range of different. So I thought I should talk with people here to see how does that ripple out to suburban areas like New Hope.
Wonderful question. We don't see a lot of that.
Okay.
We see a push for recycling. We see a push for sustainability. We see a push for doing things that are good for the earth. But we haven't been really lobbied by anybody saying, "Hey, don't sell menthol products. Don't let people package in plastic." We did when Hy-Vee was opening. We were lobbied very diligently by the union to say that we had to make Hy-Vee a union shop. That's a business decision on Hy-Vee's part. That's not my place as a councilman to say that. So we have not received pushes for that. The things that we've received the pushes for, as I said, have been recycling. And now you'll see recycling down available at Duck Duck Days. You see recycling in our city parks. You see that we continue to progress in the Green Step program to do things healthy and good for the earth. And so there's a lot of things that the city's doing, but we don't have that big push that you see in Minneapolis and St. Paul.
And then not from a city's perspective, but just your own thoughts or ideas. Are there problem areas, things that you think you need to consider before you'd move ahead on something like this, even if you were getting pushes?
One of the things that I received some emails on was the selling of tobacco to people under 21 years of age. And I received some very nice emails from from people that I know as citizens and people
Right.
that I know as friends that are saying, we really need to follow St. Louis Park, and I think it's Edina, who
Right.
are saying, no, we're not selling, you cannot sell to someone under 21
Right.
years of age. I've asked that the council look at that, and again, looking for feedback from residents on it. And I look forward to hearing from folks on it, and it will be something that we will discuss at a council meeting. One of the really nice things about our city is that if any of the council members have something they'd like to discuss, they will put it on an agenda for us for a work session, and we're able to really hash things out. And those are open to the public.
Right. And then some of the debate has been about, so I'll get your response to that, if you're dealing with things like business regulations, maybe it should be on a statewide basis rather than a citywide basis. So I just thought, get your response to that.
I agree with that completely, because what you do is you can chase business from your community into another community. And we want to do what's best for the community, and making so many regulations for businesses doesn't bring businesses into town. Not too long ago, I say that now, a couple years ago, we changed the ability for businesses to come in, open restaurants. We had such a high ratio of food to alcohol percentages ratio, and we end up with the I can't think of the name of it, the business down off of 36 and 169 ended up going to a 50. It was a small little tiny place, and now they have 58 seats. And we are working with our businesses to make the best environment possible for them to thrive. If they thrive, our citizens do well with it. But we're not going to have a business thrive at the expense of our citizens. And so it's working well for us. But yeah, something statewide really is far more helpful in making cities not chase businesses out or try to lure them in.
And then the other part of the legislative thing was, during this past session, there was some ideas brought forward about how cities shouldn't make any of these decisions at all.
Correct. There's a fine line there. And, cities don't want to just follow edicts of the state. And some communities work far better knowing what their citizenry is, knowing what works there, how it functions, and having a state make wide sweeping directives can unduly and unfairly penalize some communities. That said, there are some of these things like the sale of tobacco that maybe it's best to be a statewide thing.
Well, I want to thank you very much.
Thank you.
We've brought a lot of issues forward and updated people on what's happening in New Hope. So we're glad that you've been with us. Remember to be in contact with your mayors and city council people if any of these issues were important to you.